My family hijacked my vacation plans for my golden sister and her kids, but this time I had my own secret escape plan. Reddit. I need some perspective on this predicament with my family, which has been building up for decades. I'm 35 and have always struggled with this particular dynamic. Despite growing up in a seemingly typical suburban Massachusetts family, I've always had a difficult relationship with my parents. My older sister Kate, 42, has always been my golden child. Our home has been a monument to her life since I can remember, with every wall adorned with her accomplishments and every discussion focused on her life. My parents were too busy getting ready for Kate's college interviews to buy a cake for my 10th birthday, which I can still clearly recall. They even attempted to pass off Kate's leftover graduation cake. I've always had a difficult relationship with my family, and I need some advice on how to deal with it. I'm 35 and I've always struggled with this dynamic. They even tried to pass off Kate's leftover graduation cake as my birthday cake. As I grew up, Kate's accomplishments eclipsed every significant event in my life. Kate had recently been selected for the debate team, so my parents were hardly aware that I had made the honor roll in middle school. Kate had to tour a college campus, so they were unable to attend the ceremony when I won a local painting competition in high school. My parents were always more interested in Kate's achievements than my own. They were so busy that they didn't even come to my honor roll ceremony in middle school, even though I'd just been selected for the debate team. They were also too busy to come to the ceremony when I won a local painting competition in high school, and they just said, "That's nice, dear," and then went on about Kate. I learned to celebrate my achievements in private. I'd hide in my room and think about what I was doing right. Our house was full of new technology, stylish clothes, and everything Kate needed for her many extracurricular activities. My room was full of me. I learned to celebrate my achievements in private. Even the stuff we had around the house showed what was important to our family. The newest tech, stylish clothes, and everything Kate needed for her many after-school activities were always in her room. In contrast, my room was full of hand-me-downs. When I said I wanted to take music lessons, I had to make do with Kate's old violin, her old clothes and her old school supplies. I had trouble playing the violin, since it was too big for me. We'd already spent so much on Kate's piano lessons that year. My mum responded by saying that we couldn't spend any more on that. All the way through high school, the trend persisted. I was forced to use borrowed library books to study while Kate received private instruction for her SATs. My parents took out a loan for her to buy a car. At college, they told me to take the bus when I needed a hand getting around. Kate's needs and wants were at the heart of every financial decision and holiday plan. It was really tough in college, with our parents' full support. Kate got her degree from a top university, and they only agreed to pay half the tuition fees at a public school. When it was my turn, they said, "We're still paying off Kate's student loans. You'll have to sort out the rest on your own to make ends meet." I worked 2 part-time jobs. When I was a student, I often fell asleep over my textbooks. Meanwhile, Kate started her career at a job our parents helped her get through their contacts. 7 years ago, Kate got married, and everything changed, or rather, got worse, for a whole year. Our family focused all our attention on the wedding for her ideal wedding, which included a designer gown, a fancy location and a guest list of more than 300. My parents took out another loan, despite their concerns. I remember us all chatting in the kitchen one evening about how nothing was too good for the big day. I was supposed to coordinate bridal showers, plan a lavish bachelorette party and deal with any minor emergencies that came up. My mum told me, "Don't be selfish, Elizabeth. This is your sister's special time." I told her how stressed I was trying to juggle all these obligations while working full-time. About the payments, I remember us all hearing them in the kitchen one evening, going on about how nothing was too good for Kate's special day. There was never any question that she was her maid of honor, was there? I was supposed to coordinate the bridal showers, plan the lavish bachelorette party and deal with any minor emergencies that came up. My mother told me, "Don't be selfish, Elizabeth. This is your sister's special time." When I said I was stressed about juggling all these obligations while working full-time, the twins followed. Our parents were over the moon when Kate revealed she was expecting twins, even though they were still repaying the wedding loan they contributed to the down payment on a home close to them. I witnessed them spend their retirement money, which they claimed they couldn't access, when I needed assistance with college. On the day they signed those documents, however, they claimed that this was different. This is for our grandchildren, who was the default. Rewrite the text in a more casual tone. The twins were born, and our parents were over the moon. Even though they were still paying back the wedding loan they gave them, they were really happy. I saw them spend their retirement money, which they said they couldn't access, when I needed help paying for college. But they said that was different. This is for our grandchildren, who was the default. Babysitter? Yes, I do. It started out as a bit of random babysitting. Elizabeth, could you watch the boys for a few hours? That became a weekly thing, and then evenings too. Whenever they had appointments my parents were cool with this, saying that's what family does. Kate and her husband Jack, who's 43, thought I'd always be there to help them. Even when I tried to say no, even though I love them. The twins, who are now 7, are super active. Year-olds, are draining. The routine is the same every weekend. Kate drops them off at my place, usually with some excuse about needing me for a bit or having to run errands, and the lads run riot, turning my tiny apartment into a disaster. Kate starts crying about how overwhelmed she is when I try to set limits or ask for advance warning, and my parents criticize me for not being supportive. I put in a lot of overtime to get myself on in the marketing industry. I recently got a promotion. I'm a babysitter. Yes, I do. It started out as a bit of a random thing, but then it became a regular thing, and then it was every week and then every evening too. Whenever they had appointments my parents were all for it, saying that's what families do. Kate and her husband Jack, who's 43, thought I'd always be there for them. Even though I love them, the twins, who are now 7, are draining. The routine's the same every weekend. Kate sometimes drops them off at my place, usually with some excuse about needing me or having to run errands. The lads run amok, turning my tiny apartment into a disaster. Kate starts crying about how overwhelmed she is when I try to set limits or ask for advance warning, and my parents criticize me for not being supportive. I put in a lot of overtime to get where I am in the marketing industry. I recently got a promotion offer that it's more hours and more travel, right? Mum said. But what about the twins? Your sister needs you here, Kate. You can't take that job, Elizabeth. Who's going to look after the boys? I said, trying not to get mad. I'd mentioned it at dinner, hoping someone would say something nice. But it seems like my job, my life, and everything else are all irrelevant. Family should come first, Elizabeth, Dad says. Your sister has 2 kids to look after. You don't know what tired really means. I tried to. So, can you tell me how overwhelming it all is? Kate accused me of being envious of her life and her kids. She replied, you're just bitter because you're still single. It was as though my marital status was the only thing that determined my value as a person. After a particularly demanding weekend with the twins, I decided to finally treat myself to a beach vacation last month. The twins had successfully damaged my laptop and left permanent markings on my couch. I knew I needed a vacation. I discovered a small, unpretentious resort in Florida. That was perfect for a relaxing break. My mum was over the moon when I mentioned it during our weekly family dinner. Oh, that's great. We should all go together. The twins would love the beach. Before I could say anything, Kate had already started organizing activities. She said, you can take the boys for a swim while Jack and I have some alone time. As though my trip would naturally turn into a time for them to be looked after in exchange for my help with the twins. Of course, my parents even offered to upgrade my reservation to a superior one. So, they all stayed at the resort, and they didn't even care that this was supposed to be my holiday. They started organizing activities and trips that the twins would like, and I made a decision that would change everything. I made a separate reservation at a different resort on a quiet island. I kept this change a secret from everyone, and I started getting ready by scheduling time off work, packing my things, and making sure that my emergency fund was available. I just couldn't deal with it any longer. At the airport they'll be separated from us while I board my flight to another location, which is Florida. I've disabled location sharing and I'm ready for the criticism that's probably going to come my way. I know there'll be drama and they'll be upset, but I want to focus on myself for a change. For 35 years I've been the reliable sister, the ideal daughter and the always available aunt to meet my family's expectations, but I've had to stop. My social life, my weekends and my own needs. I was always babysitting, so I didn't have much time to go on dates. I've turned down some things that might have been a bit tricky with my family, because I wanted to be there for them. I've put my personal life on hold for now. I'm trying to escape a lifetime of being taken advantage of, not just a holiday. I want to use this as a chance to set clear limits with my family and maybe even take a break from them. I'm sick of always making sacrifices for my family. Reddit, you've always been there for me, the one I can count on, but lately, I've been feeling a bit lost. Am I overthinking? Should I really just follow the family plan or do I deserve something better for myself? Since my last post, I've been thinking a lot about where I'm at. I want to explain how it all went down, even though everything went as planned. The day at the airport was a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. I decided to check in at a different terminal on purpose, just to mix things up. I got to the airport really early, but my family weren't there when I got there. I watched everyone come through the glass walls of the terminal. Jack was checking his booking details, my parents looked excited, Kate was handling the twins and Kate was hauling baggage. I went through security for my own flight as soon as they started to head to their check-in. As soon as they realized I wasn't at their gate, my phone began to buzz. The first text said, "Where are you?" "Gate B12 is where we are." Then the anxious ones, "How are you? Elizabeth, has something taken place?" And finally, the irate ones, "How could you treat us like this?" The guys were in tears before I boarded my aircraft. I switched off my phone. I experienced a peculiar fusion. I felt so free, and I felt so guilty. I had felt this way for years. But I felt exhilarated and new. I felt like I was living in a tourist destination, not on a little island. I didn't have to worry about the twins, or my family, or my schedule. I just had to go to the beach and feel complete freedom. The first 2 days were challenging. The twins would be eating lunch now, or Kate would typically need an assistant to go to bed at this hour. I kept checking the time. It's hard to break decades of indoctrination. But something changed on the third day. I tried out things I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. I loved every minute of my fun but silly surfing lesson. I made friends with a bunch of other lone travelers. When I signed up for a yoga class by the beach, I even had a spontaneous dinner date with a fascinating man I met at the resort's coffee shop one evening. Even though it was just a casual dinner, it showed me that I could live a life apart from my family. After 5 days, that was the real test. There were dozens of voicemails, more than 300 text messages and 147 missed calls. Even my mother had called my workplace to report a family emergency. Luckily, I had told my supervisor in advance that I was going to take a holiday. Some of the voicemails were from. That week was a real test. I got loads of voicemails, more than 300 texts and 147 missed calls. Even my mom called my workplace to say there was a family emergency. Luckily, I'd told my boss I was going on holiday, so they knew. Some of the voicemails were. My mom's tone changed from worried to angry to manipulative. "Elizabeth, how could you leave your family like that? The twins are bawling. Did we raise you like this?" Even worse were Kate's messages. "You've ruined everything. The lads are insistent about their request." The way Elizabeth spoke to me changed completely. She went from being concerned to angry to manipulative. "Elizabeth, how could you leave your family like that? The twins are completely devastated. Did we raise you like this?" Even worse were Kate's messages. "You've ruined everything. The lads are insistent about their request." For Aunt Lizzie, I can't handle meetings on my own, so Jack had to shorten them. However, one message was different. My father sent it and he seemed unsure for once. Elizabeth, please let us know you're safe. I don't understand what's happening. I had never heard him talk to me like that. He always had a lot to say about Kate and would often ask me to get on with more. But this time I just texted the family chat and said I was having a great holiday and I'd get in touch when I got back. I just needed some space. I then turned off the conversation and resumed talking to myself. The following 5 days were life-changing. I turned off the conversation and carried on talking to myself. As well as reading bedtime stories to the twins, I read 3 novels. I spoke with other guests without interruption every evening. Instead of rushing home to help with baths and bedtime, I watched the sunset to process years' worth of suppressed emotions. I even started keeping a journal. I had dinner at a little beachside restaurant last night. The waitress saw that I was alone and asked if I was okay with being there by myself. She said something that stuck with me, so I gave her a quick explanation of my situation. Family is important, but you can't do it at the expense of your own well-being. You've got to put yourself first sometimes. I didn't go straight to my flat when I got home to get ready for the inevitable showdown. I'd booked a hotel room for 2 nights during this time. I updated my work emergency contacts, changed the locks on my doors and, most importantly, put my boundaries in writing. I accidentally liked a coworker's post. You know, being selfish can actually be the most daring thing you can do. When I got home, I didn't go straight to my flat to get ready for the drama I knew was coming. I booked a hotel room for 2 nights during this period. I updated my work emergency contacts, changed the locks on my doors and, most importantly, wrote down what my boundaries were. I accidentally liked a colleague's post on social media, which is how my family found out I was back. My mother and Kate arrived at my apartment building really quickly, constantly buzzing my intercom across the street. I watched them from the window of my hotel room, feeling a bit cut off from their amazing performance. I'm going to confront them tomorrow at a neutral coffee shop, not my residence. I know it won't be easy, but I've prepared what I want to say when I consider it. My family found out I was back through my worker's post on social media. Mom and Kate turned up at my apartment building in a matter of hours, constantly buzzing my intercom across the street. I watched them from the window of my hotel room, feeling oddly cut off from their spectacular performance. I'm going to confront them tomorrow at a neutral coffee shop, not my residence. I know it won't be simple, but I've prepared what I want to say when I consider it. My hands tremble, but I'm choosing myself for the first time in my life, and I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm sure the worry, the guilt and the drama that will undoubtedly ensue will be worth it. I'll provide another update following my talk with my family. I'm grateful because Reddit gave me the confidence to take this first step towards independence. Second update, as scheduled, my family and I gathered at the coffee shop, and it was even more heated than I had anticipated. I am shaking as I write this, but I'm doing the right thing. I'm choosing myself for the first time in my life, even if it means I'll have to deal with worry, guilt and drama. I'll give you another update after I've had a chat with my family. I'm grateful because Reddit gave me the confidence to take this first step towards independence. Second update, as scheduled, my family and I got together at the coffee shop, and it was even more heated than I had anticipated. This is what happened. The encounter at the coffee shop began politely enough. I got there early and sat at a corner table where I could see the front door and the emergency exit. It's a habit I'd formed from years of expecting family drama. I could hardly grasp my coffee cup because my hands were shaking so much. My parents, Kate and, surprisingly, Jack, all showed up together. I am glad there are no twins. I raised my hand and said what I had practiced before. This is what happened. The get-together at the coffee shop started off pretty normally. I got there early and sat at a corner table where I could see the front door and the emergency exit, a habit I'd formed from years of expecting family drama. I could hardly hold my coffee cup because my hands were shaking so much. Then, to my surprise, my parents, Kate and, even more surprisingly, Jack all showed up together. I'm glad there are no twins. I raised my hand and said what I had practiced before. They began their planned speeches. I'm establishing boundaries and they can't be negotiated. The 2 hours that followed were a masterclass in manipulating emotions. Kate started crying as she described how my absence had traumatized the twins. My mum attempted to instill guilt following all that we have done for you. Unexpectedly, Jack tried to mediate by offering a compromise in which I would only see the kids every other weekend. For the most part, my dad sat quietly. The 2 hours that followed were a real eye-opener. Kate started crying as she described how my absence had traumatized the twins. My mum tried to make me feel guilty, even though we've done so much for you. Jack tried to mediate by offering a compromise, would only see the kids every other weekend. My dad sat quietly, clearly uneasy. The moment of truth came when Kate said, "You're being selfish. Family means sacrifice." That was the moment I broke. I responded calmly, "Yes, family means sacrifice, but it's supposed to go both ways. When was the last time any of you sacrificed anything for me?" The room went silent. I revealed everything for the first time: the years of being Kate's second best friend, the unfair financial treatment and the ongoing belief that my statement that I was being selfish was the pivotal moment. I said that family means sacrifice, but it's supposed to go both ways. I asked them when was the last time any of them had sacrificed anything for Methan. I revealed everything for the first time: the years of being Kate's second best friend, the unfair financial treatment and the ongoing belief that my life and time were not as valuable as theirs. I then showed them my calendar for the previous year, with every weekend designated for babysitting and every holiday tailored to their requirements. My mother tried to interrupt, saying, "But that's what aunts do." I responded by saying something I had never dared to say before: "No, that's what paid babysitters do. Kate, if you need this much help, maybe it's time to consider hiring one." The discussion took I showed them my calendar from the previous year, with every weekend marked for babysitting and every holiday planned around their needs. My mum interrupted, saying, "But that's what aunts do." I responded by saying something I'd never dared to say before: "No, that's what paid babysitters do. Kate, if you need this much help, maybe it's time to consider hiring one." The discussion took a different turn. My mum followed Kate as she rushed out, apologizing profusely. Jack stayed and acknowledged that they had exploited my availability. After a brief silence, my dad said, "We never meant to make you feel this way. It was something, but it wasn't an apology." I carried out my strategy when they left. I moved to a different area of the city and got a new apartment. It's smaller than my previous residence, but it's in a safe area. The building has a doorman, who has been told about my situation. Only my workplace and a few close friends now have my new phone number. The hardest part was rebuilding my life from scratch. It wasn't the moving or the planning. I had no real hobbies or close friends because I had spent years being there for my family. I started small. I signed up for pottery lessons, joined a local reading club and said yes to dinner invitations from coworkers. People I'd previously turned down. It was a weird first weekend of real freedom. I did things I'd never thought I'd do, like staying up late, going to the farmer's market and spending hours in a bookshop. Kate didn't text me urgently, and my mum doesn't make guilt-tripping calls or ask for last-minute stuff. I had to give up my usual routine, which was a bit of a weird experience. I did things I never thought I'd do, like staying up late, going to the farmer's market, and spending ages in a bookshop. Kate didn't text me urgently, and my mum didn't make any guilt-tripping calls or ask for last-minute stuff. My family was pretty harsh when they found out about my relocation, but I guess it was to be expected. When my mum tried to call me through the company switchboard, they found out that my new job doesn't allow personal calls during business hours. One time, Kate even visited my office, but security was alerted beforehand. She wrote a tearful letter accusing my family's reaction to my relocation was a bit harsh, but not a huge surprise. When my mum tried to get in touch with me using the company switchboard, they found out that my new job doesn't allow personal calls during work hours. One time, Kate even stopped by my office, but security was tipped off before she got there. She wrote a tearful letter accusing me of destroying our family. Jack was the reason for the unexpected turn of events. He apologized by email for his part in making the situation possible. At first, Kate wasn't too keen on him taking the twins to events on the weekends, but she's come around to it. It's a small but important change. My parents are finding it a bit of a challenge. My parents are finding it hard to adjust. Dad texts me sometimes, usually when he's trying too hard to make a conversation, and Mom goes between being angry and just being quiet. She left a voicemail last week saying, "When you're done with this rebellion, we'll welcome you back. This isn't a phase," and she doesn't get it. My new reality is this: without regular family. Dad sometimes sends me texts, usually when he's feeling a bit down, trying to get a conversation going. Mom can be a bit erratic, either having a go at me or just being really quiet. She left a voicemail last week saying that when you're done with this rebellious behavior, we'll welcome you back. She doesn't get it, and I'm not sure I do either. I'm more productive and focused at work now, and I've noticed a big change. My supervisor has given me the job of overseeing a big new project for the first time in years. I'm also dating casually, but I'm taking it slow. I feel like I've had the biggest shift internally. I no longer have the constant background anxiety. I've started exercising more regularly, eating better and sleeping better, and according to my therapist, I've even started therapy. I'm finally getting over what she calls chronic family stress syndrome. The twins sent me a gift last weekend with handcrafted notes saying how much they miss me. Even though it was a bit sad. I told them I love them, but I need some time to look after myself. I had to write it, even though Kate probably won't read it. "There's a lightness about you now, you look years younger," said an old acquaintance of mine when I ran. I told her yesterday that she's right. I'm feeling lighter, despite the angry text, the attempts at emotional manipulation and the guilt that still surfaces. More liberated. Family love shouldn't feel like a prison sentence. I'm discovering respect for personal space, acknowledgement of one's own needs and reciprocal assistance, rather than only one-sidedness. I've learned to value personal space, recognize my own needs and be willing to help others, rather than always giving my all. Next week is my new flat's 1-month anniversary, and I'm throwing a small party to celebrate. I've only invited a few friends from pottery class, book club and work, no expectations, no drama, just people who accept me for who I am. I'll give another update soon. I'm grateful to Reddit for giving me the confidence to make this life change. Update: I've finished the update. It has been a life. After 3 months, I thought I'd talk about how it's all come together. The showdown I was dreading and hoping for happened last week. My dad turned up at my workplace out of the blue. He didn't try any of the emotional blackmail or crazy outbursts my mum used to throw at me. He was calm and accepting when he asked if we could have lunch together. We met at a place near my office. After 3 months, I want to talk about how it all came together. The confrontation I'd been dreading and anticipating happened last week. My dad turned up at my workplace, which was different from how Kate had tried to emotionally manipulate me or how my mom had previously lost her temper. He was calm and accepting when he asked if we could have lunch together. We met at a pub near my workplace for the first time in my life. He truly saw me as his daughter, not as Kate's sister or the family's fallback option. He said, "You look healthy," in a surprised tone. The fact that he hadn't seen me unhappy for years weighed heavily on the comment we made to each other. The family had made a proposal. They were prepared to make concessions if I agreed to take back my place in the family. I could have every other weekend off, he said. They even offered to pay for my time with the twins, as though making money from it would make it more appealing. I realized as I looked at him across the table that they didn't see my independence as a basic right, but rather as a bargaining chip. "Dad, I'm not negotiating my freedom, I'm living it," I replied. The conversation that ensued. I told him I could go every other weekend. He said they'd even pay for my time with the twins, as though making money from my commitment would make it more appealing. I realized as I looked at him across the table that they didn't see my independence as a basic right, but rather as a bargaining chip. I replied that I'm not negotiating my freedom, I'm living it. The conversation that ensued was the most candid one I have ever had with my father. I described how their constant focus on Kate had impacted me emotionally as well as practically. I told him about memories he had forgotten or had never noticed, dreams disregarded, accomplishments overlooked, and birthdays neglected. His reaction was surprising. After a long time in quiet, not making the normal defense of their decisions, he finally said, "We thought. I think this was the most open I've ever been with my dad." I told him how their constant focus on Kate had affected me, both in my feelings and in my life. I told him about memories he'd forgotten or never noticed, dreams he'd disregarded, accomplishments he'd overlooked and birthdays he'd neglected. His reaction was surprising, given that he usually comes out on top in these situations. After a long silence, he said, "We thought we were doing what was best for the family. We never saw how much we were hurting you." Although it wasn't exactly an apology, it was the first time I'd ever been acknowledged. When he asked about my new life, that was the true turning point. He listened for the first time as I talked about my pottery lessons, my job and the new people I'd met. Even though it wasn't perfect, I showed him pictures. We were just trying to do what was best for the family. I guess we didn't realize how much we were hurting you. It wasn't an apology, but it was the first time he'd ever really listened to what I had to say. He showed some interest when I told him about my pottery lessons, my job and the new people I'd met. I showed him a picture of a vase I'd made. I was shocked by what he said next. "You seem to have built a good life for yourself without us." The recognition and the sadness in his voice were genuine. At the end of lunch, we agreed that nothing would ever be the same again. He gave me my first real hug in years as he said goodbye. "I hope we can be part of your life again, but on different terms." That conversation seemed to set things off. After we got home, my mother started attacking me with her emotions again. She told everyone that I need an intervention because I'm having a breakdown. Kate's been putting out passive-aggressive comments about selfish sisters and broken families on social media because she feels deceived by our dad's approval of my decisions. The difference is that none of it doesn't have the same effect on me as it did before. My new life has given me a different perspective. I think my family's actions are an attempt to keep control over someone who has finally gained their freedom. My new flat feels like home now. I've started teaching my less experienced colleagues, and pictures of my chosen family and friends who value my independence and respect boundaries adorn the walls. I've even started teaching my less experienced colleagues at work, breaking free from the vicious cycle of toxic support that had long trapped me. My connection with time has changed the most. I get to spend the weekends any way I want. I've started learning Spanish, joined a local hiking group and even started dating someone who respects and values my limits. I'm creating a life for the first time that is true to who I am, rather than what my family demands of me. The twins sent I got a homemade card last Sunday, which was obviously written under supervision, and it was full of really regrettable statements about how much they missed their aunt. This would have previously led me into a downward spiral of uncertainty and remorse, but I responded with a tender yet strong letter stating that although I may not be as involved in their everyday life, my love for them hasn't changed and that sometimes grown-ups just need to grow up. Sometimes, adults need to find their own path. My therapist says I'm showing what she calls post-traumatic growth, which is about moving past the past and creating something better. She's helped me see that I don't have to fix my family. Yesterday, Jack, Kate's husband, contacted me to say that my stance has caused changes in their home, and they're not blaming me. They've finally hired someone to help. I've been told I'm showing signs of post-traumatic growth, which my therapist says is about moving past the past and creating something better. She's also helped me see that I don't need to fix my family. Yesterday, Jack, Kate's husband, got in touch to say that my stance has caused changes in their home. They've finally hired someone to help with the twins, and he's become a more involved parent. Jack thinks it's better for everyone, but Kate is finding it hard to adjust. I'm sat in my home office getting ready for a business trip next week. As I write this last update, which I could never have done in my previous life, I've got a frame quotation that speaks to my path on my wall. The quote on my wall is something like, "The bravest thing you can do is set yourself free." I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been there for me and followed my story. You've given me the confidence to make my own decisions. If you're wondering if people in similar situations are selfish for wanting their own lives, know that not being free is not. Treating yourself isn't unkind, setting limits isn't a betrayal. I don't know how my relationship with my family will develop in future, but maybe one day we'll find a different kind of connection, one based on respect rather than duty. For now, I'm focusing on the life I've built, including my treating myself isn't unkind, setting limits isn't a betrayal. I don't know how my relationship with my family will develop in future. Maybe one day we'll find a different kind of connection, one based on respect rather than duty. For now, I'm focusing on the life I've built, including my friendships, interests, profession and, most importantly, my sense of self. This isn't just a conclusion, it's just the beginning, and I'm excited to see what happens next. For the first time in my life, I'm looking forward to what's next. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.